If you haven't heard of William Street, well, then you've forgotten, because you most certainly have. It's that Adult Swim bumper, that creepy as all hell Adult Swim bumper. It's the sound of an anvil getting double struck with a hammer, preceding an eerie drum rumbling, and it makes me sick to my stomach. The William Street logo, and what sure as hell looks like a factory in a ghostly black and white or grayscale. Oh, I feel trauma just thinking about it. Now, you might think that's a bit of an overreaction, but hear me out. So yeah, that building was indeed a carpet factory once upon a time. These days, William Street is Adult Swim's and therefore Cartoon Network's, to an extent, corporate HQ. I used to drive past it all the time, right in the heart of the Northwest, adjacent to downtown Atlanta. I miss the days just before those days, back when all Atlanta was to me was a land of Coca-Cola, the Atlanta Braves, and abandoning the Falcons to root for some front-runner football team and pretend you had ties to whatever the region you superficially attach yourself to. But there's nothing superficial about the William Street building. There's myths, and then there's truths. The most prominent myth is one you've probably heard of, that some poor schmuck found two King of the Hill VHS tapes containing a lost episode in which Hank pegs Bobby in the nose with a baseball and poisons Peggy to death with a propane valve. That part, as far as I can tell, isn't true. The part that is true, you might have also heard that the guy who allegedly found those tapes dressed up as a cop and drove down to Cartoon Network HQ demanding answers. What the idiot didn't know isn't that Cartoon Network owns King of the Hill. No, because that's wrong. King of the Hill only aired in reruns on AS. Before it was canceled, all 13 seasons were broadcast on Fox, and Turner bought the rights like they do just about everything else they get their grubby hands on. But that's not the important part, I guess. The important part is that, yes, that freaking moron did dress up like a cop. And yes, a Cartoon Network exec did humor him, if you know that story, despite knowing it was just an average Joe citizen committing a felony and pretending to be an officer. And yes, they threw those tapes in a vault and let him drive home and more or less forget about the whole thing. Again, if you don't know this already, it's all over the internet. All this talk of a King of the Hill lost episode in which this guy went through all this stuff. Well, that part is true. But there's something else you should know. There's a reason why that William Street's company bumper is so ghastly. The problem is that nobody really knows what that reason is, except for me, I guess. There are rumors of freak accidents at the old carpet factory, someone falling off the roof or something after pressing a soldering iron against his arm in a freak accident or something. I don't buy that one. It would have been the news, even if Ted Turner shelled out millions to cover it up. It would have leaked eventually. What I do know is that once upon a time, after the sun had been down for some hours, I went up there with a camera, except I forgot to record, because I was a bored teenager who had just gone through a messy breakup and didn't care if a security guard caught me and had me arrested for trespassing. It wasn't all that hard to pull off, really. They do have guards stationed there 24/7. I think because they at least used to house master tapes of some of the programs there or something. I don't even know what's in there anymore. But I rappelled my way up there, hook and rope style. In my native Switzerland, we're rock climbers. I've put my life in some scary situations. One snapped rope, and I'd have one snapped spine. I did it all the time. Trust me. And what did I find up there on that roof but nothing? Nothing. Nothing. It really was unremarkable. As ordinary as office building roofs come. I laughed at my sheer idiocy and couldn't wait to climb back down to safety. Again, going in, I couldn't care less if I was caught. But coming down, given I found absolutely nothing, I would have felt like a total smacked ass if this was how I ended up in prison or lost my ability to stay in the United States of America. Oh, but I didn't fall off. I didn't stumble down the rope. I didn't even burn my hands on the rope because I didn't touch the rope at all. You see, I turned around and I felt a shove. It was lightning fast. Blind him right in the frucking eyes with my flashlight, or so I would have if not for his shades. He was about 5'10", a bit slender. I'd say a little bit of a beer belly, but hardly obese, from what I could see. I could make out sandy brown hair on his sides, but I couldn't see the top because it was covered by a baseball cap of some sort. And as for his eyes, again, no chance of me making them out. He was wearing dark rimmed sunglasses. Be ye friend or foe? He asked. I shuddered. What was going on? Who was this? I see. You're coming off a little bit rusty. He paused for a few moments. Then he gaped. Ah! I blew my cover! And then he shoved me. Again. And then I went plummeting this time. Off the side of the TBS Cartoon Network William Street building in the dead of night. So, is the reason why the logo is so ghastly because I became a ghost that one tragic night when I was 19 years old? No. Besides, that logo had already been established long since then. I woke up fine, though I was lying on the ground. Somehow. Cops did show up and asked me some questions. I brushed a small trace of dirt off the back of my neck getting up, and there wasn't even a single scratch. Somehow. I did something dumb and lied to a cop, saying I was a Georgia Tech engineering student who had a little bit too much to drink because I was nervous about an exam. Guy gave me some bullshit about how he was young once too, and how I shouldn't pass out on these streets or I'd find myself mugged or worse, dead. Oh, I didn't tell him that I had no idea how I was still alive. No. To be honest, that moment gave me a new lease on life. I chalked up the ghostliness of the William Street image to its ties to the Space Ghost Coast to Coast program and the old Ghost Planet moniker the William Street crew used to go by. But that sound never left me. That dun, dun. Anyway, that was until about a week later when I checked the pockets of my stylish preppy boy cardigan before throwing it into the wash. You see, I found something that shouldn't have been there. There was an empty cigarette pack, and I don't smoke, with a Canadian Leaf logo on the outside of the pouch. Well, empty other than a tiny handwritten paper note neatly folded inside. Tiny, but large enough to have a handwritten message on it. Head for the hills. The hills have your eyes. I was finally arrested a week later for trespassing.